You know, it is quite interesting how difficult it is to record something in one take and just speak fluently throughout the entire duration of, say, a 20-minute video. And I understand that is redundant for me to say an entire duration, but whatever, you get the point. Either way, welcome back. We're going to discuss Cradle book number 2 this time. That will be Soulsmith by Wight, my new favorite author. And book 2 is really good, but it's not as fast-paced as some of the other books are later on in the series. But I think that's because he has to go through the process of world building once again. So for Cradle book 1, it was all contained to Sacred Valley for the most part, except for the excerpts with Serial, and that's just foreshadowing for all intents and purposes. Now we actually have Lyndon and Yaren having made it outside of Sacred Valley, and they're in the Desolate Wilds, I believe that's what it's called. So they've made it to the Desolate Wilds, and they have to build the world, or Wight has to build the world of the Desolate Wilds for you. So you have Sacred Valley, where you have this bunch of sacred artists, and they're relatively weak by all standards, kind of archaic as far as their values and understanding of the systems are concerned, and then you make it out into the real world, so to speak. And it's a completely different atmosphere, so there's a lot of learning that has to be done in Sacred Valley. Yaren was just about the most powerful sacred artist within the entire valley. When she gets out to the Desolate Wilds, then she's good, but there are plenty of people who can do a lot to her in order to harm her. So that being said, then you're living in this universe now, and it's a wonderful book. The world building that they do is very thorough. It introduces different characters, different families, different clans. It kind of extends upon the politics of the world that they're in, being Cradle and the sacred artists, but it also gives a different perspective in a sense of it's much more nuanced as far as operating is concerned. So Sacred Valley is all about honor and the tribes, or the clans rather, going head to head, and there's competitions where they clearly understand what the goals are, and there's a sense of honor associated with it, although that's somewhat of a loose term. But there is a sense of honor that really drives the activities within Sacred Valley. When you get to the Desolate Wilds, that's pretty much out. There's some honor, so to speak, but there's a lot where it's just like, hey, listen, this is my clan, and yeah, I will operate under the guise of being honorable, but we can be very cutthroat as well. There are topics such as slavery, which was quite surprising. Not slavery in the conventional sense of American history, or history of the world in general, but there is some forced labor within the book, which I thought was an interesting take on how he wanted to write things. And then there is, I would say, there's combat, but through the means of by any means necessary, if that makes sense, as opposed to the more honorable duels that you kind of found through Sacred Valley. So it's just an interesting world. But suffice to say that the world is done very well. So as we look at the story, then we have Lyndon and Yaren, who are now in the Desolate Wilds, and the entire purpose of Lyndon and Yaren's getting together in the first book was for them just to make it out of Sacred Valley. So now they've made it out of Sacred Valley, but they're kind of aimless, right? Lyndon knows that he wants to get stronger, but at this point, I don't even believe he's become a copper yet. And Yaren is a low gold at this point. I'm pretty sure she's a low gold at the beginning of this book, if not mid. But they don't know what they're doing, right? So before I go any further, I guess I should give you guys an overview of the ranking systems, or the progression systems. As I mentioned before, it's a progression series. So you have Unsold, which Lyndon was initially. Then you have Copper, you have Iron, you have Jade, you have Low Gold, High Gold, True Gold. There's Underlord, there's Overlord, and then there's Archlord. And then along with Archlord, then you have Sage or Herald. So it's kind of like a branching off into a higher level of power that you can go off into. And then it culminates with monarch, which is someone who's basically become a sage and a herald at the same time, by developing the brute strength of a herald and an icon of a sage. So there'll be more to come with that. But I say all that to help you understand how low Linden and Yaren are throughout this book, right? So in Sacred Valley, there is nothing higher than a jade, period, right? Sacred Valley, as you'll come to learn, is under some type of a force field, if you will, or a script circle that dampens the power level of people there, right? So people coming from the outside, their power is reduced, and people who live in there, they never make it beyond a certain point based off of the script that's there. So Linden comes out and he makes it to Copper at the beginning of this book, and he's so excited. He can actually use Madra, and while he's still the weakest thing in the wilderness by far, he at least has, it's like a baby cub that's gotten his first tooth. He's absolutely elated, right? So Linden's there and he's trying to survive, but he is taken advantage of by different clans. He's trying so hard, and he meets certain characters who are quite beneficial, and they'll be instrumental to him along his journey. One most notably is going to be, or very notably, not most notably, is going to be Fisher Gesha, a short old woman who has what's called a drudge. So soulsmiths have what they call drudges, and it's kind of like, not necessarily a presence, but it's kind of, think of like an assistant, not necessarily AI, but an assistant that helps them identify materials and assist with the soulsmithing process. Soulsmithing, think what's the word that I'm looking for, like somebody who hits stuff with anvils and makes weapons. For some reason that term is evading me right now. I feel really self-conscious about the fact that I can't think of it, but so in about 10 minutes when I think of this relatively simple word, and I'll throw it in there. Either way, so soulsmithing is basically that. And as a soulsmith, then they have materials or the drudges that allow them to make weapons or make, I guess, different prosthetics or just different things. Like they have things called bindings that they can put into prosthetics or that they can put into weapons that go into helping them with their, not just with their sacred arts, but with their journeys in general, just as far as life is concerned. So and Lynn is super excited about that because he wanted to be a soulsmith when he first began. Not before he even began practicing the sacred arts. His mother was a soulsmith, and Lyndon wanted to follow in his mother's footsteps. So that was something that he was very excited to do. Along his journey of becoming a soulsmith, then he is targeted by this character named Jai Long, who is somebody who's going to have a pretty big part in Lyndon's story and his development. But he's targeted not based off of anything that Lyndon did, but based off of the fact that the Desolate Wilds is just a pretty messed up place. So as soon as they get there, then someone picks him out, and he's with Yaren, and they basically understand that Lyndon is very weak, and this lady, I don't know her name, but she decides to single Lyndon out as easy prey. And Yaren, being there as a very loyal person and protective person, and she basically insults this individual. I can't remember what she did to her, but she did do something that was embarrassing. She basically flared her madra, so to speak. The other woman backed down, and Lyndon kind of just stood there and sat back while Yaren basically insulted their tribe. As a matter of fact, if I recall correctly, they were ambushed. Lyndon defended them. Lyndon actually jumped in and tried to help. I don't know how much good he did, but that was kind of the genesis of why Lyndon was targeted. So Yaren's basically strong enough to defend herself in the real world, and Lyndon is not. So and then, oh, by the way, she's taken in by the Fisher clan as well. Both her and Lyndon are taken in by the Fisher clan. So the Jai clan, and Jai Long is the acting leader of this clan, has decided that in reprisal they will kidnap Lyndon and they'll make him do forced labor. Again, I mentioned slave labor earlier, so that's what they'll do as kind of recompense for the slight that was given to their clan. So that happens. Lyndon ends up being released because Fisher Gesher nobly came to his to his defense and took back her pupil. And I thought that was a pretty cool moment. You know, Fisher Gesher comes across as this really stern, detached old lady, but in that area, then she really showed that she cared. And it's probably between that and Yaren one of the few times that someone really stuck up for Lyndon. To his dismay, then Lyndon is foolish enough to go and get himself captured once more. So right there, I think I should talk a little bit about just Lyndon's character. So Lyndon is greedy, right? He's the epitome of somebody who grew up without having anything, and then when he gets to a place where he has the opportunity to develop or to obtain possessions, he absolutely goes crazy. So in this world, there are things called treasures, and then there are things called scales, which are, you know, they're interesting. Scales can be used as currency, but scales can be consumed, so to speak, as far as Madra is concerned, by either certain sacred beast or certain, I want to say, not remnants, but certain spirits or whatever they're called, like little blue consumed scales or whatever the case may be. I believe sacred beasts do as well. But either way, so Lyndon is he's mining in a place where they produce several scales per day, right? And with so many scales, it'll help him go towards progression, because that's all Lyndon really cares about, is just progressing, right? Getting to that next level. He's a copper now. He wants to be an iron. He wants to be a jade. He wants to be all these wonderful things. So Lyndon comes up with this plan of going back and robbing the people who just had him enslaved, and he talks Yaren into it, and Yaren's down for the cause, right? She's like, hey, they insulted our family, and we have to strike back, so let's go for it, right? Now, she took for granted that Lyndon understands certain things such as spiritual sense, which means that if any sacred artist of a certain power level comes anywhere near you, then you'll be able to pick up their presence just by your spiritual sense being extended. Yaren understands that because she's so used to it, and Lyndon does not understand that. So Lyndon's he kind of scopes out the area, and he understands the shifts rotation of the guards, and he picks the perfect time for him to come in and rob Jailong and his clan. But Jailong understands that there's a copper, then there's only one copper. He senses a copper approaching his presence in kind of the middle of the night or early in the morning, and basically he captures Lyndon for the second time and then enslaves him again. And at this point, Fisher Gesher's like, hey, she comes and she tries to get him back, but Jailong's more powerful, and he's like, hey, listen, this person has directly assaulted my clan, so to speak, tried to steal from us. So either they acted without your knowledge, then they deserve to be punished, or they acted with your knowledge, which means that there's a presence between you and I. And Gesher reluctantly says, hey, listen, well, I think we have a misunderstanding, and she goes on about her business and leaves Lyndon to his fate. And kind of deservedly so, honestly. So, sucks for him, but that greases the skids for Ethan to join, right? And I think Ethan is universally, I want to say, everybody's favorite character throughout the entire series, for good reason, right? So you have Ethan, who is this very eccentric character that just comes in, and prior to Lyndon even being captured, this guy interrupts the Jai clan doing something, and there's some type of attack where a bunch of people try and assault him, and he just moves out of the way effortlessly. He doesn't fight back, he doesn't do anything aggressive, but he just leaves people looking like idiots as they try to attack him, and nothing works on him. And then he goes on about his business or whatever the case may be. So Lyndon is captured for the second time, and he's in the mines, and then Ethan pops up and he causes a ruckus again, and then he allows Jailong to capture him. And in this book, then Jailong, for his slave labor, then he puts collars on his captives, right? So these collars suppress their power level. So let's say that you have somebody who is a true gold, so to speak. With this collar on, you'll be to the power level of, say, like a jade or so, or maybe a logo, whatever the case may be. It significantly reduces your power level. So Yaren's given a collar when she's captured, and it significantly represses her strength. And Ethan comes in and voluntarily allows himself to be captured, and Jailong hesitantly has somebody put that collar on him, and then afterwards, then Ethan is now one of the workers, so to speak. But it's all for his machinations. So he goes in, and within a chapter or two, then Ethan's there. He meets with Linden, and Ethan, like I said, very eccentric, very eclectic. He just observes. He observes Linden. His entire purpose for being there is to recruit talent for his family. And he sees Yaren, he knows about Yaren, and he's like, wow, like her foundation is absolutely wonderful, and he wants Yaren to be a part of his family. And then he notices Linden, and at first he's not super excited about Linden. He doesn't pay him too much attention because he is ridiculously weak. However, he does notice that Linden is atypical in the sense of he has a pure Madra core, which is something that not many people have. Ethan is the only person that I'm aware of, aside from Linden, who has a pure Madra core, right? So a pure Madra core, for the most part, there are different paths, right? So you start with Madra, and you pick a path, and then your Madra basically conforms to the path. So in Sacred Valley, it was White Fox, I believe, which is kind of like a white flame Madra. There's different types. Like I want to say Jailong is, I can't remember. The Jai clan is like this venomous kind of snake Madra, although I can't remember. Jailong has slightly different, I believe, based off of the remnant that he obtained when he became a logo. And then they have other stuff like, now go Black Flame. You'll find out more about that one. But suffice to say, there are different paths that people can pick, and nobody that Ethan has run across in quite some time, at least, has pure Madra. So I believe that's what got him interested in Linden. And then also Linden's just activity and tenacity and all this other stuff. So we go forward, and they have to mine these caves, and there are these sacred beasts that are pretty treacherous that will attack the workers, and the Jai clan is their overseers. Then their responsibility is to try and protect the workers. So they fight off the beasts while the miners actually mine for these rare and valuable resources. Except for insert Ethan, who decides that he just wants to let everything be sabotaged. So he kind of creates a distraction while sacred beasts are attacking, and he just walks. He walks Linden through dodging and moving and avoiding these sacred beasts, while the people from the Jai clan are being absolutely destroyed by these sacred beasts, right? So it's quite comical, and as it continues on, then Linden starts to ask more questions. Ethan starts to take more of a leadership role in directing them, and the book goes on to have them separated. Ethan basically pulls off his collar like it's nothing. So the suppression collar is something that like has generally no effect on him whatsoever. He just discards it. Yaren, it's hilarious because Yaren tries to do the same thing with hers, and it won't budge at all. And then Ethan basically locks Linden in a room with a bunch of sacred beasts, or these terrible creatures that are trying to kill him, for a couple of weeks, I believe. I believe it was about 2 weeks. So he goes back, he gets his pack, and then he closes the large stone door again. Linden's begging, pleading, probably crying to get out while he's getting attacked, and he has to come up with all these ways of how he can survive and defend himself against these sacred beasts. He gets injured quite a bit. He's forced to come up with creative ways to use his Madra system. Yaren is helpless, still in her collar on the other side of the door, and she's trying to get the door open, but she's not powerful enough to do it. She's threatening Ethan, and Ethan like basically pays her no attention and says, hey, listen, I understand that your master is dead, but I can train you. You don't have anybody, so if you're willing to listen to me, I can get you to a new level. Yaren kind of reluctantly agrees to take on this training, so to speak. So she's fighting, I'm not sure if it's members of the Jai clan or if she's fighting other beasts. I outside of that specific wall. But either way, this goes on for a couple weeks. Oh, she spars with Ethan quite a bit as well, right? And Ethan is able to, kind of piece her up or whatever, which gives Yaren a level of respect for him or whatever the case may be. So she does that, and she also fights either Beast or the Jai Clan as well. But Lyndon is exclusively just fighting these sacred beasts for about 2 weeks or so. So finally, Ethan opens the door, and Lyndon's on death's door, so to speak. But he's got a lot of experience. I think his leg is basically crippled, and he's bleeding from all over. His clothes smell like he's been exerting a lot of physical effort for the past 2 weeks with no type of hygiene. So I guess he smells as bad as you would expect him to. And Yaren and Ethan are kind of just there. So Yaren goes on to do something else, and Ethan, who has a bunch of insight on how you can obtain progression, talks about an iron body. So copper being the first stage, iron being the second stage. Iron is where you basically kind of get like that adult strength. So you'll hear of, as young men transition from, say, like the young adult 18 to 20, 21, 22 to somewhere around 24, 25. That's when we get our man strength, right? When we really grow into our bodies and become who we're going to be as far as our physical peak is concerned, or go that direction. So the iron body is something akin to that, where it's just like, okay, you had your frame, you had your physical attributes, but your iron body is when you get the body that's basically going to last you for the rest of your life, the rest of your journey within the circular arts. So it's very important. You can influence how your body is, right? So they have, there's a puppeteer's iron body. Ethan has the raindrop iron body, and these iron bodies are kind of suited towards whatever your path is. And Lyndon gets a blood forged iron body. So what that means is he has an iron body that's more resilient to poison and to any type of physical breakdown, specifically internally, right? So his Madra channels can withstand a lot more than, let's say, Yaren's could at this point in the book. And the way that they accomplish this is they have these little venomous crabs or something, whatever it is, these little venomous creatures that the Jai clan use, and they give their initiates maybe 2 or 3 drops or so during their ceremonies to get their iron bodies. So it's extremely painful with a couple drops. So Lyndon and Ethan talk, and Ethan talks about how he can quickly get him the iron body that he needs. But he pulls out one of these little creatures. Like, just think of them as like scorpions, if you will, right? He pulls out one of these little sand scorpions, and he has it latch onto Lyndon, and it bites him, right? So it bites him, which is going to be significantly more than 3 drops of venom. And then also he has to crack it open and drink the blood of this little creature. So he does that, and it's excruciating, and that should be enough to get him the iron body, right? And then Lyndon is in extreme pain, but Lyndon's a warrior, man. He's a G. And Ethan is like, well, are you good? And Lyndon's like, is that it? So Ethan pulls out another one, gives him another one. So repeat this process 4 times. And I believe that it was more like 4.5. So Lyndon is literally, he looks dead. He has like black varicose veins running throughout his entire body. His body is excreting all types of substances. Like, this guy is legitimately just messed up, right? And it's hilarious because Yaren comes in while he's consuming or dealing with the effects of the 4th sand viper. That's what it's called, the 4th sand viper that bit him. And Yaren tries to draw her sword on Ethan. He just dodges without anything, or whatever the case may be. Yaren thinks that Ethan's basically killed Lyndon. And then Lyndon like raises his hand and asks for one more, and Yaren's just stunned. And Ethan like puts another sand viper on his wrist, and it bites him, and then his entire body just seizes, and he starts to go into a seizure. And Ethan's like, oh, too much, right? So I want to say it's like 4.5 or whatever the case may be, because he didn't actually drink the blood of the sand viper. but it starts his process of transforming into his iron body. So it's like a Dragon Ball Z transformation. Like think Goku going Super Saiyan. His body just starts to form, and there's this. If there were music playing in the audiobook that I listened to by Travis Baldry, an amazing voice narrator, by the way. But if there was music playing, then I just imagine Goku transforming into a Super Saiyan for the first time, and he makes it after a long excruciating process. He makes it. He has a blood forged iron body, and this dude is like the epitome of power and strength as an iron, though. So it's hilarious because he reaches this level where he has one of the better iron bodies out there, but he's still only an iron, right? So he's not a copper anymore, but now he's an iron. He's an iron in a world full of low golds and above, if that makes sense, right? So think a really, really strong child for all purposes, right? But he has this iron body, and now we transition to they're in this pyramid, so to speak, while all this is happening, where they are searching for these treasures. So the different clans converge on this pyramid, and they're kind of vying for these sacred relics, so to speak. And there's kind of like some needless conflict that breaks out. But long story short, they end up trying to fight Ethan again, and that doesn't work out for anybody. And then Yaren ends up going head to head with Jai Long. Jai Long has this really, really close friend who's somewhat of like a brother to him. I believe his name is Cochrane Sandviper. No, Crow. Sandviper Crow. And he's like, Jai Long is like his adopted brother, right? So Jai Long, because he got disfigured when he took on his gold sign, there was some type of mistake, and he had to defend his sister against this remnant that went and fed on her. So he ended up taking on the remnant of something that left him disfigured. His face is like, think Baraka. He probably looked close to Baraka. That's how I envision it. So he wears this red scripted tape over his face, so that way nobody can see what he actually looks like. And his clan ejected him because they're like, hey, listen, you were supposed to be the front runner. You were going to take over the clan, but we can't have you out here representing us looking like that. So Jai Long basically gets adopted by Sandviper Crow, I believe, and Crow would be his son, which makes him Jai Long's best friend and adopted brother, whatever the case may be. So long story short, Crow, whatever, the son ends up trying to kill Linden while Jai Long is fighting Yaren, and he stabs Crow with some type of Sandviper sword or arm, something that injects venom, and for a normal sacred artist that would be enough to just kill them, right? So Crow just walks off and turns his back and is like, yeah, the iron's dead. He doesn't understand that Linden just got the best iron body ever, and that he doesn't have to worry about. He has such an immunity to this venom that it doesn't impact him nearly as much as it would anyone else. So while Crow's back is turned and Ethan is distracting him, so to speak, Crow tries to get him to join his sect. Ethan basically chumps him off and is like, hey, listen, like, I would never join something as low as your clan. It's absolutely ridiculous and pathetic, or whatever the case may be. And while he's giving this speech, then Linden attacks Crow from the back, and he ends up killing Crow, right? So you have an iron who kills a high gold, as a matter of fact, not even a low gold. So he kills somebody that you have jade, low gold, and high gold. So he kills somebody that's like 3 stages above him, right? Which is extremely dishonorable for Crow and his family. So he kills Crow. Jai Long is absolutely livid, right? So he's enraged and he wants to kill Linden. And at this point, Ethan is just tired, and he's like, hey, and there's a bunch of people in there who are, kind of vying back and forth for positions, for treasures, whatever the case may be. And at this point, Ethan reveals that he is indeed Ethan Aurelius, which is kind of like a pretty prominent family within the Black Flame Empire, right? So you have the Desolate Wilds and you have the Black Flame Empire. The Black Flame Empire is over the Desolate Wilds, however, they're far removed, if that makes sense. So Ethan is the head of this prominent family, and oh, by the way, he is an underlord, right, which is a level beyond anybody that's in the Desolate Wilds. Jai Long was a high gold. I want to say there may have been one true gold or so in A Desolate Wilds, as far as I understand with the book. But either way, everybody's below Underlord. And oh, by the way, like when we talk about power levels within this world, and think like the difference between base Goku and Super Saiyan Goku, that's kind of the power level that's probably the power gap we're talking about between a true gold and an Underlord, if that makes sense, right? So Ethan is able to just suppress the entire room with his spiritual presence by unveiling himself, and he basically is like, hey, listen, I'm done playing with you guys. I don't have time to negotiate with you. Like, I'm taking these guys, they're being adopted into my family, so to speak. And Jailong he just wants his revenge on Linden for killing his brother. And Ethan's like, well, I tell you what, like, I would not prohibit you the opportunity to get revenge and honor your family. However, he's an iron, so give me 1 year and you can have a duel with him and you'll have your opportunity for revenge. Jailong reluctantly agrees, but he's like, hey, listen, it's a year. At this point, Jailong's a high gold and Linden's an iron, and in a head-to-head battle, there's absolutely nothing that he can do. Plus, Jailong has something called, or afterwards, there's this ancestor spear, which is a Jai clan artifact that basically siphons Madra that's compatible from people that he attacks, and Jailong's actually able to absorb it, and it increases his Madra density and allows him to advance, right? So by the time that they meet, then Jailong would have advanced to true gold, so that leaves Linden needing to advance to Jade, and then low gold, and then high gold, and then true gold, all within the matter of a year, in order to compete with him. And there are people, like, for reference, like in Sacred Valley, Linden's parents are only irons, right? So it seems like an impossible feat, but Ethan says, hey, within a year, you'll go ahead and you will duel Jailong. So they accept that, and Ethan lets Jailong get the sacred ancestors spear, and they go their different ways, and that's kind of how the book goes, with Linden having this cloud of doom over him, and he's going to train as hard as he can. Ethan's going to train him and try and prepare him. Yaren's there along for the journey to continue her own training, since she doesn't have a master anymore. And Linden and Yaren are now part of the Aurelius family, so they are formally adopted as Yaren and Linden Aurelius, and Ethan Aurelius, the Underlord and Patriarch of the family. They all go off and they begin their journey to a place called Serpent's Grave, which you spend a good amount of time in book 3, Black Flame. So again, the story kind of picks up a little bit faster than the first book. Still not what you're going to get to in the subsequent books, but a very good story nonetheless, and I hope that this further intrigues you in the series of Cradle.